So there are three things you can do before you turn 25 that give you a crazy high ROI. So ROI is basically return on investment. I would say one valuable skill you can actually have as a man before you turn 25 is taking some risks. Because let me just tell you a story. Back in the days, I was a ski instructor, and I was actually quite a good one, I think. But whenever I would train for myself, I would always fall, 2 or 3 times a day at least. And that's not a normal thing to do for a ski instructor. Because most of the time, a normal ski instructor falls maybe once every month. You don't want people to see you, right? You don't want your colleagues to see you falling over. But I didn't care. I didn't care about what my colleagues would say. So when I would train, I would fall all the time. And you know why? Just because I wanted to learn. Because I knew that if I would fail, if I would fall, that I would learn something. That's the only point where you can actually really learn. So whenever I went skiing, my colleagues just looked at me weird, like, what the fuck is this guy doing? What's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? He's always falling. Like they never felt, right? But I remember making huge fucking progress in my level of skiing. In just 1 month time, I completely changed my level of skiing. It was actually quite interesting to see. And yeah, you should have seen their faces, right? Like, how the fuck is this guy progressing so fast, right? So you, as a man, you can take a hit, right? Especially when you are young. Because what's the worst thing that can happen? I think you should take some risks. And not just with a small thing like skiing, but with big things as well. So in all areas of life. So, for example, some big things. I remember when I made this decision to start my business, because I was working full time at the time, and I told my family and friends that I was just gonna quit and just start a business, right? And they would look at me crazy. They told me that I would end up in the gutter, and the thing I did, I just survived on my savings, And to be honest, to answer this right now, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst. I mean, I could run out of all my savings, right? And then I would just have to work again. That was the worst thing that could happen. I would just have to work again. And I would say, like, if you fail, you probably will fail 90% of the time if you take huge risks, right? But 10% of the time you will succeed. But this 90% of the time where you're actually failing, you are learning like crazy. And I would say that's the best mindset, because you learn by taking some huge risks. And so many guys, so many people are afraid these days. Like, just look at my friends and family. They were so afraid for me to take this risk. And it wasn't even a real risk, The only thing that could happen was that I had to work again. And so many people are stuck in this 9-to-5 job, so afraid they don't even like it, right? They don't even like the 9-to-5 job, but they are so afraid of what's going to happen if they leave that they just don't leave, and they are depressed in their job. They're just afraid to... It's a sad reality, and maybe they are being made scared by our government, right? Because of this, things like COVID and yeah. Okay, you might fail, and there's a big chance you will fail, but you will learn. That's a guarantee. You will learn. And maybe you know Alex Hormozi, right? And I think you do, because he's one of the most influential businessmen at the time, and I think he's a great masculine guy, and he takes huge risks. And I would say taking risks is a masculine thing to do as well. Always being afraid, that's a feminine thing, right? So Alex Hormozi, he started his business with $50,000 in savings. You know what he did? He bought a gym from, I think he paid $49,000. He had $1,000 left, just enough money to make it till his next rent payment, right? His next month. And then he was totally out of money, totally out. So he would have to make some money quick. He had this push. He was basically burning all the ships behind him. He had to succeed, and he had this is not the only thing. This is not the only one. He had some crazy ass stories where he would have to make some big payment of $100,000 before the end of the month, and he didn't even had any money at the time. Like, how do I end up with $100,000 before the end of the month, right? So he would have to figure out some way. He would have to learn, and man, this guy went through some shit, huh? So I would say to you, try to avoid the safe route. Try to avoid the standard, go to college, get a job, 9 to 5, stay safe, invest in mutual funds, take some risks, follow the things, follow your dreams, because you are still young, and the worst thing that can happen, it's nothing can read, it's like a safe space. Like if you are 68, if you're 60 years old, okay, you can lose your pension, okay, there are some real life consequences at that point. But when you're young, especially when you live with your parents, what's the worst thing that can happen, And I would say the safe route is actually the scary route. Actually, it is, because when you go safe, you are basically settling for mediocrity. You are basically settling for, a bad life. And what is mediocrity these days? Mediocrity is struggling to pay next month's rent. Not being able to buy healthy foods because you don't make enough money. That's mediocrity. Mediocrity is being stuck in a 9 to 5 job, and you can't really escape that. It's becoming a 9 to 5 prison at this time. So take some risks. Take some risks, because that's very, very important. And we, as masculine men, we are the ones who are taking risks. Okay. So another way you can really invest in your future before you turn 25 is challenging yourself. So give yourself a hard, life-changing challenge. So the way I did this was by making a bike trip. So I made a bike trip of 2,500 kilometers. So I went from Holland all the way to Austria, and I biked 150 kilometers each day. And you know what the funny thing is? I didn't even brought a tent. I just had a hammock, and I was sleeping in open air just to challenge myself. And I can tell you that it was really, really hard as well mentally. I was feeling lonely as fuck at some point, and physically as well. I didn't have an ass left at the end of the month, and my legs hurted really bad. But I just had to go through. Because if I didn't bike, then I wouldn't reach my end point. I would just stay stuck at the same time. And this is the same thing with staying stuck at self-improvement. If you don't go forward, if you stay the same as you are, you will not reach your goal. It's a game of progressing or regressing. So I would say challenging yourself is a great thing to do, because you actually have to meet yourself at some point. You have to find yourself at a specific point where you really struggle continuing. So for me, this was actually at day 4 or 5 of my bike trip. I was feeling very, very lonely, and I was like, why am I doing this actually? I want to go to Austria, but should I just return? Honestly, this question popped into my mind. Should I just return? But I didn't. I went through it, and I made a solution. I found a end goal at that time. So what happens if you don't challenge yourself? If you stay in comfort? I would say that it's reality of so many guys. So many guys are afraid to challenge themselves. They want to stay in comfort, so they stay inside. They don't even have the guts to bike for five minutes because they want to stay in comfort, and they're afraid of the rain. They're afraid to go outside and to do hard things. I mean, whenever you and I, for example, invite them to a challenge, hey guy, hey, you want to go on a holiday with me, or you want to do this bike trip together, they back out because they are afraid. So you don't want to stay stuck in the comfort zone of just watching TV, and you want to be able to do some hard things. And truly, if you are able to do the hard things, life will become much easier, and you will get into this crazy discipline mode. I have experienced this, like crazy discipline mode, where I could just work all day. I could yeah, like a fucking horse, get into some uncomfortable situations. And the way you can challenge yourself is by doing something like which I did. And I would say you would have to challenge yourself for a whole time, because you want to meet yourself. You want to end up at this point where it's really, really hard to continue. So just one little challenge is not gonna cut it. You should maybe find the biggest mountain in your area and just try to climb it. 2,500 kilometers, like, let's go. And that's something you're gonna meet yourself with. So another way you can, there are many ways you can do this, and I would say going out in nature is one of the best ways to do the best ways. Go on a really long run, bike for 8 hours straight, things like this. Think about it. And I would really like to be in this environment of young men who are able to do really hard things, to basically say to you guys, like, okay guys, let's go, let's climb this mountain. How cool would that be? Let's go on this holiday together, let's go on this survival holiday together, because everybody has just built himself up, has just built himself to be a strong man which is capable of doing hard things. Okay guys, let's bike to Greece. Like, I have all these ideas I have all these ideas in my mind that I really would like to do. I like to challenge myself, and I would like to do it with other people. The last thing you can do as a man before you turn 25 is build a network, because I discovered that this is quite important. So back in the days, I was a guy who was just hanging out with my friends, my normie friends, right? And I didn't see any harm in that. We are just partying and drinking, and I wanted to be like them. I saw them doing all these things, and I wanted to be like them. But they were not really contributing to my process, or they were not really a valuable network for me. So I would say this is one of the most important things to do, and I really had a hard time letting them go, because I thought, well, does this apply to me? But whenever your friends are doing shit like partying, taking drugs, video games and stuff like that, they are not contributing to your process. So I would say start building a network of people who are somewhat similar to you, who are working on a business, working out, doing great things in life, because these people can like really, really help you. So the reason why that's important is because they will motivate you. They will motivate to do the hard things. So while you are hanging out with your normie friends who are playing video games, right? You also want to start a business, but do you think they will motivate you to start a business? Like, they might, the biggest chance, there's a big chance they will actually tell you that, oh, just come hang with us, come play. You want to go to this party? Come with us. They will pull you down every time. So when you have good friends who also do the same thing, they will motivate you to try new business tactics, to keep working, because they are also doing the same thing. They're also starting this business. They are also going to the gym. So another thing that's like really great about, building a network of people you are somewhat similar to is you can use them for certain things. For example, as business partners, to start a business together, or to do certain things. For example, I have this friend who has his own business, and he also wants to get into real estate. So I could contact that friend and tell him that maybe we could get into real estate together, or we could do this thing together. We could help each other, in a few ways. And I've really recently discovered the power of networking, because this story of my bad friends was like 6 months ago, but now I do have a very, very nice network of people who are actually somewhat similar to me. I want to build it, but I can already see that, I could use this friend for this thing, and this friend could use me in this specific area of my business. I have this friend, he's really into fitness, so maybe we could go to the fitness together and keep each other accountable. You see where I'm going right now? So I would say that building a group of friends, who could do things together is so valuable. Just imagine yourself living in this community. in this community with people who are all similar to you, right? Who are all working on a business, going to the fitness, who are all on self-improvement. That's like a great vision, right? That's like a great end goal, just being surrounded by people who are all similar to you. And just imagine the things you could actually do with them. You could go on hikes together, you could go on challenges together, you could really push each other to the limit and help each other with everything. Your kids could live together and they could basically grow up in this way of living. They wouldn't be like indoctrinated by our school system or anything like this, but they would get their teachings from you and I, because we have the same vision, we have the same view of life. So I think that's a great thing. I mean, building a great network can like really be strong. Spartans, prepare for glory.